Welcome, my friend. Close your eyes, let go of the worries of the day, and take a deep, relaxing breath. Tonight, we embark on a journey across ancient, mysterious seas. This is the story of the seventh and final voyage of Sinbad the Sailor. After returning from his sixth long journey, Sinbad had achieved immense wealth. For a long time, he lived a peaceful life in his beautiful home, surrounded by friends and comfort. But as the months passed, the quiet life began to fade. The familiar longing returned to his heart, the desire to feel the ocean breeze, to visit distant lands, and to share stories with merchants from around the world. So, Sinbad packed his finest goods and traveled down to the busy port of Basra. There, he joined a group of trusted merchants on a sturdy, grand ship. As the sails caught a fair wind, the ship glided smoothly into the open ocean. For days, the journey was peaceful, safe, and filled with hope. Eventually, the ship arrived at a magnificent trading city known as Madinat al-Sim. The merchants conducted excellent business, and Sinbad's heart was full of joy. But the sea is an unpredictable master. Shortly after they set sail from the city, the bright sky turned instantly dark. A violent wind began to howl, and a heavy, freezing rain drenched the ship and everything on board. The crew rushed to cover the cargo with heavy canvas, and together they prayed for safety. When the terrible storm finally passed, the captain climbed high up to the top of the mast to look for land. He looked to the left and then to the right. Suddenly, a look of pure despair washed over his face, and he began to beat his forehead with his fist in absolute grief. The sailors cried out from below, "Captain, what is wrong? What do you see?" With a trembling voice, the captain replied, "Say your final goodbyes to one another. The unstoppable winds have defeated us. We have been driven into the furthest, darkest corner of the uncharted world." The captain climbed down to the deck, his hands shaking. He opened his old sea chest and pulled out an ancient, leather-bound book. He read it silently for a few moments, tears streaming down his face. "This ancient book describes exactly where we are," the captain whispered. "The unstoppable winds have defeated us. We have been driven into the furthest, darkest corner of the uncharted world." The captain climbed down to the deck, his hands shaking. He opened his old sea chest and pulled out an ancient, leather-bound book. He read it silently for a few moments, tears streaming down his face. "This ancient book describes exactly where we are," the captain whispered. "This is a place from which no human has ever escaped. We are in the Sea of the King, where the legendary King Solomon is buried deep beneath the waves. And beneath these dark waters live creatures so massive they can swallow an entire ship whole." A heavy silence fell over the crew. Before anyone could speak, a terrifying roar echoed across the ocean, a sound like crashing thunder that shook the very wood of the ship. Out of the water rose a creature so colossally huge, it looked like a mountain moving through the sea. The crew froze in pure terror, preparing for the end. Then, a second later, another monster emerged, even larger than the first. The two massive serpents began to circle the vessel. Finally, a third creature appeared, larger than both combined. It opened its massive jaws, a dark abyss wider than the gates of a great city. Suddenly, a violent wave hit the ship, lifting it high into the air. The vessel crashed violently against a hidden coral reef, breaking into 1,000 pieces. Everything and everyone was instantly swallowed by the roaring sea. Sinbad found himself gasping for air in the cold ocean. By pure luck, a large wooden plank floated near him. He climbed onto it, holding on for dear life as the rough waves tossed him up and down. In that moment of deep isolation, Sinbad looked up at the sky and thought to himself, "Oh, Sinbad, you did not learn from your past hardships. You promised to never sail again, yet your greed brought you back to the sea. Now you must endure this suffering." With a heavy heart, he made a solemn vow to the universe that if he survived this night, he would never, even in his dreams, travel the dangerous seas again. For 2 long days, Sinbad drifted under the burning sun and starlit nights. On the 3rd day, the currents gently pushed his plank onto the shores of a beautiful green island. He crawled onto the land, ate sweet wild fruits, and drank cool, fresh water from a spring. His strength slowly returned. As Sinbad explored the island, he discovered a majestic river of sweet water flowing through a deep valley. Remembering his past adventures, he gathered fallen logs of light balsa wood and tied them tightly together with strong vines to build a small raft. He pushed the raft into the river and lay down, letting the gentle current carry him away. Days passed. Without food or proper rest, Sinbad grew incredibly weak, his mind drifting into deep exhaustion. Suddenly, the peaceful silence was broken by a loud, roaring sound ahead. It was a massive waterfall. The river was moving faster now, pulling his raft directly toward the dangerous edge. Sinbad closed his eyes, accepting his fate. But just as the raft reached the brink, a wide fishing net splashed into the water, wrapping tightly around the logs. A kind fisherman on the riverbank pulled the net in with all his might, rescuing Sinbad just in time. When Sinbad opened his eyes, he was surrounded by a crowd of friendly people from a great nearby city. An elderly gentleman, dressed in rich, elegant robes, stepped forward. He helped Sinbad to his feet, wrapped him in a warm blanket, and led him into the city. The gentleman took Sinbad to the luxurious local steam baths, bought him a set of fine clothes, and brought him to his own grand estate. For 3 days, Sinbad rested in a beautiful room, eating rich foods and recovering his peace of mind. On the 4th day, my host came to me and said, "Praise be to Allah for your safety. Will you come to the market with me and sell your goods and take their price?" Sinbad was confused. "Sir, I lost everything in the shipwreck. I have no goods to sell." The old man laughed softly. "Do not worry. Just come with me." At the marketplace, Sinbad was amazed to see that the old man's servants had brought his balsa wood raft. Merchants began to bid on it. One man offered 100 silver pieces, but Sinbad's host outbid everyone, offering 150 silver pieces. Sinbad gratefully accepted, knowing the raft was barely worth a single coin. The elderly gentleman then looked at Sinbad with deep respect. "I am a very old man," he said softly, "and I have no sons to carry on my name, but I have a daughter who is young and ready to marry. The Most High has smiled on you by saving you 7 times from the sea. In all my long life, I have not heard of another man who has survived more than 3 shipwrecks. Would you do me the honor of taking her to be your wife?" Sinbad was overwhelmed by the man's immense generosity. He looked into the old man's sincere eyes and accepted the offer. The wedding was a grand celebration, filled with music, lights, and joy. Sinbad's new wife was not only breathtakingly beautiful, but also incredibly kind and wise. They lived in perfect harmony for many wonderful years, until the old gentleman peacefully passed away, leaving his entire estate to Sinbad. As the new master of the estate, Sinbad began to spend more time with the citizens of the city. Soon, he noticed something highly unusual. Once every month, a strange transformation came over the townspeople. Their bodies changed, growing magnificent wings, and they transformed into large, majestic birds that could fly high into the clouds. Fascinated by this, Sinbad approached one of his close friends among them. "Next time this happens, carry me upon your back, so that I too may know what it feels like to fly." "This cannot be," he replied, but I did not cease to ask him until at last he agreed to do as I wished. When the next transformation occurred, Sinbad climbed onto the birdman's back. With a powerful leap, they soared high into the atmosphere, leaving the earth far behind. They flew so high that the air became thin and pure, and Sinbad could hear the faint, beautiful songs of celestial beings echoing through the heavens. Thrilled by the magic of the moment, Sinbad cried out in wonder, praising the beauty of the creation. But the moment those words left his lips, a flash of celestial fire struck the sky. The bird people scattered in fear. The man carrying Sinbad lost his strength, panicked, and dropped Sinbad onto a lonely, high mountain peak before flying away. Stranded on the mountain, Sinbad walked along a narrow ridge. Suddenly, he met 2 mysterious young men walking toward him, each holding a solid rod of pure gold. Their faces were peaceful and radiant. "We are the servants of Allah Most High," they replied. They gave me a rod of gold and walked by my side along a ridge on the edge of the mountain. As Sinbad walked down the mountain, he heard a desperate cry for help. Rushing toward the sound, he saw a terrifying sight. A gigantic serpent had trapped a local man and was trying to swallow him. The man was fighting bravely, but losing strength. Without hesitation, Sinbad rushed forward and began to strike the monster's head with his heavy golden rod. The serpent hissed in pain, released the man, and slithered away into the shadows. The grateful man turned out to be one of the bird people from the city. To thank Sinbad for saving his life, he waited until the transformation passed and then safely carried Sinbad back home on his back. When Sinbad arrived at his estate, his wife embraced him with tears of joy. She explained to him that the bird people carried a dark energy, which was why the celestial fire had pushed them from the heavens. Sinbad realized it was finally time to return to his roots. Together with his wife, they sold all their properties and goods, converting their wealth into gold and precious gems. They boarded a grand merchant ship and sailed back to Basra, and eventually made their way to the beautiful city of Baghdad. When Sinbad's old friends and family saw him, they wept with joy. He had been gone for 27 long years, and many believed he had perished at sea. Sinbad stood before his loved ones, placed his hand over his heart, and made his final promise. He would never travel again. His 7 voyages had shown him the deepest mysteries of the earth and the skies, and he was finally content. He turned to his loyal companion, Sinbad the porter, who had listened to all his stories, and smiled. The porter apologized for ever doubting the traveler's hardships, realizing that true wealth is earned through courage and patience. And from that day on, the two friends lived in peace, sharing quiet evenings and beautiful memories, knowing that the greatest journey of all is the journey back home. And that, my friend, is the story of the final voyage of Sinbad. The seas are now calm, the winds are quiet, and the world is at peace. Let your mind rest. Let your body relax and drift into a deep, beautiful sleep. Good night.